impossible to spot which were real and which were fake.
You know, what if we'd sent ground troops in on the assessment that NATO had made about the level of force destruction there, only to find that all the tanks were intact and they were ready to hit them? I think there would have been serious issues and serious question marks over that, so that's why we need an inquiry.
NATO's commander, Wesley Clark, said this week Milosevic threw in the towel because of military losses. But the decisive impact may have been on Yugoslavia's infrastructure and economy. Kevin Dunn, ITN.
Less than 24 hours into his term in office, Israel's new Prime Minister has announced moves to revive the stalled Middle East peace process. Ehud Barak is planning meetings with President Clinton and with Arab leaders, including the Palestinian President Yasser Arafat, over the next few days. Richard Slee reports.
Prime Minister Barak is undertaking a round of ceremonial duties before the real business of implementing policy gets underway later this week. On Friday, he'll visit Egyptian President Hosni Mubarak in Alexandria, followed by talks with Palestinian President Yasser Arafat on Sunday. The aim is to restart the peace process which stalled under his predecessor.
I am aware of the responsibility that is being handed over to me today. There is great expectation that we will navigate the state of Israel and the whole region towards security and to peace.
In Gaza, Palestinian officials say they hope Barak's talks with Arafat will focus on the issue of land and insist their policy of resisting Israeli settlement in the West Bank will continue. The meeting will be the first by an Israeli leader with Arafat since December, when Benjamin Netanyahu suspended the latest Israeli-Palestinian peace deal, known as the Y Accord.
Ehud Barak will present his view to Chairman Arafat. They will talk, and I believe that they find the way to implement the Y agreement, all of it or part of it, but that's something that has to be negotiated and discussed among those two leaders.
But the founder of the Islamic militant group Hamas is less optimistic for a lasting peace.
Unless the Palestinian rights are restored to the Palestinian people on its homeland, unless there is full sovereignty for the Palestinian people on its land and territory, our course is that of resistance against this occupier until it ends.
Meanwhile, a US delegation led by Senator Tom Serter met with the Palestinian leader ahead of Prime Minister Barak's trip to the US for talks with Bill Clinton in 10 days' time. Richard Slee, ITN.
The United States is imposing financial sanctions against Afghanistan's ruling Islamic militia, the Taliban. The White House says the action is being taken because of its support for the terrorist Osama bin Laden. The U.S. State Department spokesman James Foley told reporters the United States will not stand idle while terrorists target Americans. The action puts a freeze on the Taliban's property in the U.S. and bans any U.S. trade and investment with the fundamentalist movement. The Bulls will be running the streets of Pamplona in Spain again today, with organisers hoping to avoid running up any more casualties. On the first day, up to 2,000 people ran ahead of the bulls and cattle as they were released into the city's streets. One man suffered head injuries after being knocked over and badly trampled. Many of those taking part were hurt when they fell during the 4-minute race to the bull ring. In spite of the risks, the 9-day festival now attracts nearly 500,000 people from around the world. Liverpool's French manager, Gérard Houllier, has been parading the foreign legion of stars recruited for the new football season. He's bought 6 overseas players, none of them, it has to be said, a household name, and confirmed he's looking for someone to take Paul Ince's place too. Here's Peter Staunton.
The cavalry's arrived at Anfield. Whether it's in time to save the club from another ignominious league campaign, Liverpool's long-suffering fans will soon discover. The 6 new signings are from Holland, Finland, Guinea, the Czech Republic and Switzerland. Anywhere but Britain, it seems, where the stars have priced themselves out of the market.
They were either rejected because the players were not for sale, and you can see that the market is very quiet at the moment, or they were put for sale at a very crazy price.
Yet despite spending 16 million on his new boys, Houllier is still looking for a replacement for Paul Ince, the midfield dynamo whose power is waning after years of battling for both club and country. He began his career at West Ham, was caught posing in a Manchester United shirt before his transfer deal was completed. Fans at Upton Park have hated him ever since. In Italy, defenders took advantage of his fiery temper, referees often punishing him on reputation rather than evidence. And his last competitive act in an England shirt got him sent off. It wasn't a dignified exit. But in his prime, coaches loved his fighting spirit. He's now on sale at a bargain £2 million. Peter Staunton, ITN Sport.
Camelot say 5 winning tickets share a jackpot of just under £4 million from last night's midweek lottery draw. The winning numbers were 4, 6, 8, 41, 43 and 44. The bonus number was 28. Children of all ages can break out the cow pie and bubbly pop this weekend when the Dandy enters the pages of another famous publication, the Guinness Book of Records. The faithful chronicler of the exploits of Desperate Dan, Corky the Cat and Beryl the Peril will this weekend become the longest-running comic ever. The first issue appeared on July the 10th, 1937. Our Scotland correspondent, Linda Kennedy, has been looking at what's changed and what hasn't since then.
Desperate Dan is the star of this record issue of the Dandy, where every script was written in a notebook. Watercolour paint brought our comic heroes to life, and their speech balloons were finished by hand. There's no computers here. In 6 decades, all that's evolved are the characters.
Well, this is a Desperate Dan from 1938, early Dan, when he was a real desperado. Desperate Dan is, in the 1938 one, is going to buy a plug of tobacco with a penny. Well, nowadays, of course, he's a non-smoker. This is a politically correct Dan.
He no longer has a gun. Now it's a water pistol. And that old penny is a 50p piece today. The very first issue featured Corky the Cat. It cost 2 old pennies and sold millions. For the past 62 years, an issue of the Dandy has been produced in this building every week, except for wartime, when paper shortages made publication fortnightly. These rare issues sell for £3,000 each. But what do today's young people think of the Dandy?
I like Desperate Dan because you see cow pie and it's like, what is cow pie?
And I read it and it's pure funny.
I like Corky the Cat as well.
So with appeal both widespread and long-lasting, Dan and Friends should be here for generations. Linda Kennedy, ITN, Dundee.
You're watching the ITV Morning News. It's 7 minutes to 6 on Thursday, the 8th of July. Here's a reminder of today's top stories. The Post Office is set to lose its monopoly over mail delivery under a government scheme to offer the organisation new commercial freedoms. Today's white paper proposals include granting the service public limited company status to help it compete against overseas rivals. But the shake-up has raised fears of another privatisation in which customers will come off worse. Britain has restored full diplomatic relations with Libya after Tripoli finally accepted general responsibility for the murder of WPC Yvonne Fletcher outside its London embassy 15 years ago. Yvonne's family called it the breakthrough they'd been hoping for. But Colonel Gaddafi's apparent moves to re-establish ties with the international community have been labelled premature by the United States. Washington has threatened to veto any attempt to lift sanctions. In the Skagerrak off Sweden's west coast, rescue teams have been battling to evacuate more than 1,300 passengers and crew from a blazing ferry. The Norwegian ferry, Prinsesse Ragnhild, was en route from Kiel in Germany to Oslo when the fire broke out in the engine room. 10 helicopters and about 20 vessels joined a massive rescue operation just off Gothenburg.
The situation is that almost all passengers are evacuated at the moment. And still on board are almost all of the crew. The fire is under control at the moment. We have no reports of any injuries at all.
The Bank of England's Monetary Policy Committee is expected to leave the cost of borrowing on hold today amid signs of a slight economic recovery. Latest economic data suggests British industry is gradually emerging from recession, setting a growing trend of rising confidence. Two brands of bread, Asda Farmhouse and Asda Own Label, have been taken off the supermarket chain shelves at more than 50 stores in northern England and North Wales. The scare came after 4 customers reported finding a sewing needle in a loaf, the 4th in less than a month. And that's all from the ITV Morning News team. GMTV follows us. The next main news from ITN is at 12:30. Meanwhile, from us, goodbye.
Conventional oil cannot protect properly until it reaches a critical temperature. Remember, this is when 75% of engine wear occurs. How long can it take to reach this temperature? 10 minutes. Your oil is just getting started, but your journey could have finished. Even when cold, Magnatec has unique polarized molecules which cling like a magnet, protecting from the moment you turn the key. Fit GTX Magnatec from Castrol.
In our quest for liquid perfection, we have as much fun making virgin cola as you do drinking it.
Hello.
That's why you can taste our love every time you swallow. From Virgin Cola with love.
New Solero Shots. Strange, the stuff you find in the freezer today. Wall Solero Shots. The mind cooler.
When my son goes to bed, he just seemed to snuggle up to me a lot more. My skin felt soft. It was like silk. Dove carries on working all the way through the day. It makes me feel good about myself.
Only new Dove body wash contains special moisturizers like those found naturally in your skin. They last a full 24 hours.
My son, he just seemed to love his mummy just a little bit more.
Oh, smell the smoke on that.
It's okay, Febreeze will shift it.
Febreeze is a new way of getting rid of odours on fabrics.
I spray my curtains, my carpets, Febreeze, my covers, my clothes.
Love him. Hate the palm.
Febreeze doesn't cover up one smell with another. It finds the bad odours trapped in fabrics and gets rid of them safely.
Once it's dry, the smell's gone. For good. It's like I hung it outside.
Febreeze?
In the kids' room.
Next to the fabric softeners.
Febreeze gets bad smells out of fabrics for good.
Does it work on teenagers?
HP makes a bacon sandwich.
Lea Perrins for the ultimate cheese on toast.
NTL, technology tamed.
As basic engines take longer to warm up, they suffer more damage. So now, there's GTX Magnatec for basic engines.
Young, free and single, and they know what they want.
All I've ever wanted out of life was to be incredibly rich and famous and not have to work very hard.
And how to get it.
Got up. Went for a week.
Carl Howman and Denise Van Outen.
Punch Nick in the...
In a new series of Babes in the Wood, Tuesday at 10 on ITV.
Now ITV Night-Time hands over to GMTV. Good morning.
Good morning. This is the Reuters News Hour with Penny Smith and John Stapleton.
Good morning. It's 6 o'clock. It's Thursday, the 8th of July.
Yes, hello, good morning to you. On this morning's programme, we found out why men could hold their future health in their own hands and look at a new campaign fronted by Robbie Williams to get the message across about testicular cancer.
And the motor racing circus comes to Silverstone this weekend for the British Grand Prix. We catch up with the best homegrown prospect, Eddie Irvine, and give you the chance to win a fabulous prize. That's at 6:20. Hey. Let's have a first look at the weather now with Simon there. Wasn't it lovely yesterday?
It's gorgeous, wasn't it? Very warm. It looks like being very hot today as well. Top temperatures up to 82 degrees Fahrenheit down in the south today. Some mist and fog patches to get rid of, though, this morning, but they'll soon clear away. And then it looks as if we are going to be in for a generally fine day. Plenty of sunshine right the way across the country. Just light clouds floating around from time to time. Some thicker cloud, though, for the northern parts of Scotland. That could just produce the odd shower, but for many of us, it is going to be dry. Just take a look at that. 28 degrees, 82 Fahrenheit down in the south during the day. A little bit cooler, though, around the coast. 21 is about 70 Fahrenheit, but nonetheless feeling very warm for all of us, and it looks like staying warm for the weekend as well. Here's Penny.
No.
Oh, yes.
Summer might be here. Now, the news you're waking up to this morning is of a dramatic rescue operation off the coast of Sweden to evacuate 1,300 passengers and crew on board a blazing ferry. Prinsesse Ragnhild was on her way from the German port of Kiel to Oslo in Norway when fire broke out in the engine room. Ships in the area took part in the rescue, helping to take people off the stricken boat. All the passengers have now been lifted to safety, and fire crews on board are battling to control the fire. For the latest, we're joined by Børge Jacobsen, who's coordinating the rescue. Good morning to you. What's happening?
Good morning. The situation now is that the fire on board is out. No passengers left on board. The ship has been searched twice, so no passenger on board. Most of the crew are still on board. The passengers will be taken ashore by other ferry boats to Gothenburg.
How far away from shore was the ship?
The position was 10 nautical miles west of Göteborg.
Must have been very frightening for the passengers.
I suppose so.
At the height of this, how many... I understand that there were a number of helicopters and other aeroplanes involved in the rescue operation.
It has been 3 other ferry boats engaged. Total 13 helicopters from Denmark, Norway and Sweden. A lot of merchant ships, a lot of smaller rescue units.
Any idea how the fire started?
No.
All right, thank you very much, Børge Jacobsen. Thank you very much for talking to us this morning.
Well, that answered your question, didn't it? Yes. We'll have more on that. Sorry?
Brief and to the point.
Absolutely. That's what we search for all the time. We'll have more on that story, as you'll be glad to hear throughout the programme. Right now, the rest of the news with Anne.
Thanks, John. Good morning. A major investigation is underway this morning at a bakery after sewing needles were discovered in several loaves of bread shipped to Asda stores. Detectives believe the needles could have been put there deliberately before they left the factory. Duncan Wood reports.
This is the bakery that will be put under the microscope as investigators try to find out exactly how and why the contamination took place. Allied Bakery supplies 56 Asda stores across the north. So far, 4 needles have been discovered, 1 here at Ashton-under-Lyne, others in Leeds and on Merseyside. The majority of cases were reported yesterday. That's when 19 brands of Asda's own wrapped bread and farm stores bread were taken off the shelves and customers offered a full refund. It's also when the bakery stepped up security.
We're assisting the police in the investigation, and also we're putting a lot of effort and measures in place to assure the integrity, quality and the food safety of our products coming out of Stockport.
Shoppers arriving at Asda's 24-hour stores have been met by warning signs advising them to return the specific brands as soon as possible. Asda says the needles were put in after baking and the main suspicion is on the factory. Greater Manchester Police will continue their investigation here at the bakery later this morning. Until the matter is resolved, Asda says it won't take any more bread from here. Duncan Wood, GMTV News, Stockport.
A landmark case in America has ruled that cigarette companies made a product that causes emphysema, lung cancer and other illnesses. The result is the biggest courtroom loss the tobacco industry has suffered and could expose them to billions of pounds in damages. Ed Williams reports.
It was the most emphatic ruling on the dangers of cigarettes to date.
Does smoking cigarettes cause one or more of the following diseases or medical conditions? Aortic aneurysm, yes. Bladder cancer, yes. Cerebral vascular disease, including stroke, yes.
Almost 2 minutes on, the list still continued.
Pharyngeal cancer, yes. Stomach cancer, yes.
In the dock, America's 5 biggest cigarette makers and 2 industry groups. After hearing the verdict, those who launched the lawsuit hugged and wept in celebration. But for cigarette makers, the decision could prove to be the industry's most dire loss yet. Damages could top $500 billion.
This clearly is tough for the industry at this point, but would I expect enduring damage to the companies as a result of this decision? Not really.
Damage limitation is now key to the cigarette industry. They're likely to lodge an appeal in the next couple of days. Ed Williams, GMTV News.
Vaccines against Alzheimer's and other brain diseases, including the human form of mad cow disease, could be on sale within 6 years following a major breakthrough announced today. Scientists have succeeded in immunising mice by injecting proteins which prevent Alzheimer's and CJD developing. The government could come under fierce attack from the unions when it unveils its plans for the future of the post office today. One of the options under consideration is converting the last great nationalised industry into a public limited company. Unions say the move could be the first step towards privatisation. On to golf, and 19-year-old Spanish sensation Sergio Garcia is leading the Loch Lomond tournament after a first round 9 under par 62. Just 3 days after winning his first title, Garcia leads the competition 2 clear of Sweden's Jesper Parnevik. England's Roger Winchester's a further shot back. And in athletics, Morocco's Hichem El Guerrouj has broken the men's mile world record. He clocked 3 minutes 43.113 seconds last night in Rome at the second Golden League meeting of the season. And I apologise to Hitcham if he's watching and I said his name incorrectly. What's the time? It's 7 minutes past 6. I'll be back at 6:30. Here's John and Penny.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, Anne. Let's take our regular look at the morning papers. I'll start with the broadsheets. Mr Prescott very much in the news in 2 of the papers today. Prescott goes to war as a headline. That's a speech he made yesterday in which he defended the public sector. You remember the Prime Minister, Mr Blair, accused him of being resistant to change the other day. And in the Times, they've picked up on remarks in an interview he's given to the Times in which he's called some of Mr Blair's assistants, spin doctors, faceless wonders for trying to, he says, alter or undermine his policy on transport, while the Daily Telegraph leads on Libya admitting to the murder of WPC Fletcher back in 1984.
You saw the Queen on the front pages of all those newspapers, but we're saving the best till last. My favourite headlines in the Sun today.
A cracker for you.
The Daily Mail says that the whites-only transplant row escalated as it emerged that doctors refused organs from an Asian family because of a racist condition attached. They wanted the organs to only go to patients of the same race. The Express, New Hope on Alzheimer's, which you heard in the news. The Mirror, Let's Play FA Cup tie in Brazil, in the Mirror's campaign. And there we go. We love this headline. Indoors. This is the Queen who went to visit Susan's council home. This is in a sprawling Glasgow estate.
That's in the league of Freddy, sorry, I ate my hamsters.
It is a bit indoors. And you know your passport photograph, of course, you know, normally it looks nothing like you. But it generally doesn't look quite like nothing like you as this one here. because they sent him his passport back, only just in time for his holiday. But, of course, he doesn't really look the same, does he? They don't even know who this chap is.
But they are under stress.
They are under stress, yes. Probably. That's probably some chap from the passport office.
Exactly. OK, it's 9 minutes past 6 in a moment. The news, the weather and the travel where you are.
But still to come on the News Hour on GMTV, we'll be hearing from outspoken racing driver Eddie Irvine as he gets ready for the British Grand Prix. Welcome back to the news hour. This morning's headlines: 1,300 passengers have been dramatically rescued after their ferry caught fire off the coast of Sweden.
A major investigation is underway at a bakery after sewing needles were discovered in loaves of bread sold by Asda.
And the future of the post office could be radically altered when the government unveils controversial proposals in a white paper published today.
The singer Robbie Williams is spearheading a new campaign launched today to alert men to the dangers of cancer of the testicles. It's aimed particularly at young men, and it's a campaign that certainly pulls no punches, as you'll see.
Hey, you know, if you men paid more attention to these instead of these, then maybe fewer of us would be dying of testicular cancer. So go and check them out.
Well, good on him, I say. And in a moment, we'll be talking to Claire Monaghan, the medical sociologist, about the risk. But first, this report from Sue Jameson.
Colin Usher is in remission with every likelihood of a full recovery, but he never expected to be diagnosed with testicular cancer.
I've been tested for it regularly for my cholesterol and for blood pressure. There's no background of cancer in the family, and so whenever they said, oh, you've got cancer, it was very much a shock to the system.
And it's still a subject which can be embarrassing for men who are not always good at looking after their health. Because this kind of cancer has a particularly high cure rate, catching it early is the key. Now, some manufacturers have put health warning labels inside packets of underpants to get men to check themselves regularly. And that, say campaigners, is an extremely effective way of getting the message across. However, many men are already aware of the dangers.
I think they might be aware, but they might not be as willing to admit to things as women might be.
I think there's still quite a long way to go yet in comparison to breast cancer and the coverage that gets on TV.
I mean, I do because my stepdad actually had it, so I'm sort of, you know, I know what to do and that kind of thing, but probably not.
So the message is go to your doctor if you're worried.
I think some people may be embarrassed, but really there's no point of dying from embarrassment.
Absolutely. Well, medical sociologist Claire Monaghan joins us now. You talk to people about this problem, and that is the problem, isn't it? Getting men, and particularly British men, to discuss this.
Yes, men don't want to talk about illness. They have very good reasons not to, but if they were only just to think about the possibilities that they may get such a thing as testicular cancer, they would be halfway there. So it means that we have to put the information in front of them.
We are particularly embarrassed about this. I mean, I heard just the other day a sports presenter on a satellite channel talking about a footballer who's got this, but he couldn't bring himself to say the words testicular cancer, which I think is pathetic, frankly. It's as though we haven't got them.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it's the word cancer, actually, that is so frightening. And perhaps it is the fact that you can't talk about your testicles either, but I think as a society, we're petrified of this word cancer. And in this instance, it's very good news, because we can say you may get a cancer, but it's absolutely curable, and especially if it's caught on time.
Which is all the more important, makes it all the more important to inform yourself and discuss it. What about the role of partners in this, women?
Very important. The men tell me over and over again that the women in their lives take on the role of gatekeeper as far as health is concerned. So we want to put the message out to women as well. After all, they go to bed with their men, and partners who've got men go to bed with the men. So we would say, you know, watch out. Feel it.
Yeah, well, that comes to the main point. I mean, what are the symptoms to look out for?
Any changes in the testicle, even a testicle that doesn't look bigger but aches, perhaps, is something to go to the doctor about. And I would add that if a man does get to the doctor, to persist with the doctor, because we hear over and over again that doctors send young men away thinking that they're well and virile and strong.
Sure. And we should stress that this is not an old man's problem, is it? As we saw from that report by Sue Jameson, that lots of young people get this, but in fact, particularly young people.
It's mainly a young man's disease. It's most common in men between 20 and 35 years of age.
And I have to say, do you agree with me? Good on Robbie Williams for doing this?
Great on Robbie Williams.
Because that gets it on telly, and that makes the point very, very dramatically indeed.
Yes.
Well, Claire, thanks very much indeed for being with us. There is a helpline number on your screen you can ring if you want to. It's 0800 731 9468. 0800 731 9468. And if you have any doubts at all, do ring it.
The time is 6:18. The world of motor racing is buzzing ahead of this weekend's British Grand Prix. In a moment, we'll be giving you the chance to win a fantastic Formula One prize. And to whet your appetite, we've been talking to Ferrari's Eddie Irvine. He's notoriously outspoken, and right now he says that Damon Hill should get out of Formula One.
You're either out or you're in. You can't. He's got to get out because he's not doing the job for the team, and that's what's important. He's got a lot of sponsors, a lot of people at the factory. Eddie Jordan himself, all the fans of Jordan, and they want to finish third in the World Championship, and he's not doing the job. So he should walk away. I think, and the sooner the better, to let some other young guy get in there and do the job. Michael's got the best job in Formula One. To be a Ferrari number one is the ultimate job, there's no doubt about it. Yeah, I want his job, so there's always that sort of jealousy or whatever you would call it there. But he'd probably want my lifestyle, or not. It's difficult to really focus and concentrate, and that's what you got to do, because there's so much work to do in Formula One. The cars are so demanding, and when you get out of the car, the last thing you want to do is be signing autographs. You want to think about the car, and so from that aspect, it can be a bit negative having the fans there.
Speedy. Now, that competition we promised you, the fabulous first prize, is a trip to see the Italian Grand Prix on the 12th of September, and the winner will enjoy 3 days in Milan with tickets for the qualifying session and the race itself, and we even throw in some spending money, 20p or something.
Really? That's a good prize. Anyway, if you aren't lucky enough to win the big prize, we have 5 sets of Shell Classico model Ferraris for the runners-up, and they, I'm told, are really super too. All you have to do is answer this question set by Eddie.
Where will the Italian Grand Prix be held this year? Monza, Rome or Turin?
Oh, there we are. That was pretty easy, wasn't it? So, the question, where will the Italian Grand Prix be held? Is it A, Monza, B, Rome or C, Turin?
The number to call with your answer is 09902 400 600. That's 09902 400 600. Lines close at 5 o'clock on Wednesday, the 14th of July. That's next Wednesday.
Or you can send a postcard with the answer on the back to Italian Grand Prix, PO Box 67, London, SE 16 3TJ. And we're going to announce the winner on the 16th of July, which is tomorrow week. The time is almost 22 minutes past 6. Now, can you imagine looking in the mirror and thinking that you are overweight even though you weigh only 6 stone? Well, that's what happened to our next guest, and she's one of the growing number of mothers who develop eating orders later in life. Liz Scull, good morning to you. Hilary Jones is also here on the sofa with us this morning. What do you think triggered your anorexia?
Oh, I think it was a combination of things. We'd moved house and we had a lot of problems. My best friend was killed in a road accident. And my husband worked very long hours.
He's a policeman.
That's right. And I started work as well. I had to go back to work because we were in this bigger house. And
you're working as a nurse?
Yes.
And so, and then what happened? Did you actually look in the mirror one day and thought, my goodness, I'm far too fat, I've got to go on a diet?
No, not at all. I think to start with, I was so busy and unhappy that I just, I didn't want to eat particularly. And the less I ate, the less I wanted to eat. And it was quite easy.
Hilary Jones, that's a different form of anorexia from what we've heard in the past, isn't it? Because in the past we hear that people look in the mirror, think they're fat, go on a diet, and it's actually, it seems to be an area that they can control when all about is falling around.
That's right. I mean, we have this perception that only teenage girls get anorexia. It's not the case. We do see it in older age groups as well. But although there are disturbed eating habits, there is a disturbed body image as well. And despite numerous people, even people close to you, saying you must put on some weight, you're very underweight, there is a denial of that, and there is a distorted body image that develops along with this the need to control one's eating.
Liz, what did your husband say as you started to lose weight and get thinner and thinner in front of his eyes?
Well, it went on for quite a time, and to begin with, I mean, it didn't show that much, but gradually he did worry, and he would say, you know, oh, you're sort of a bag of bones or whatever.
And what did that do to you? Did it make you eat anything? No.
No, made no difference at all. I think you don't relate to what other people say or you at all. No.
Well, you look very healthy, but you are very slim at the moment, aren't you? How much do you weigh now?
I don't go on the scales now. I haven't been on the scales for quite a time, but I don't see myself as thin as what everybody else sees, I don't think.
And you're now a volunteer for the Eating Disorders Association, so what advice do you give?
I'm not really there to give advice unless I'm asked advice. I'm there just to listen to people. It's a bit like the Samaritans. People phone up and I let them talk and help. I mean, if they ask advice, obviously, or direct them, suggest where they can get help.
Hilary, what signs should family and friends look out for that there could be a problem?
Well, the first and most obvious sign is loss of weight, a significant loss of weight, to the painfully thin. People will disguise it by wearing baggy clothes, secretive eating habits, knowing a lot about calories and what contains fat and starch, but actually not eating any of that. Perhaps preparing meals, but not actually eating any of the meals themselves. A denial that there is a problem. And sometimes there are emotional problems within, difficulties and a desire to control one's weight, to control one's life. So all those signs are there and present. And I have to say that the bulimia is probably more usual in an older age group where there's binge eating and then a sort of self-loathing for having binged, and then...
Which isn't what you were doing.
I developed that after. I had the anorexia for about 2 years and then went on to bulimia.
And you're a nurse, so you knew what this was doing to your vital organs, quite apart from anything else.
It takes you over, doesn't it?
Yes, it has no effect. You don't think of that at all, I don't think.
And are you cured, if that's the word?
I would say so, yes. I would say for about the last 3 years. But if you ask my husband, I think he'd say that there's always that awareness of food. Mm. I would like to say, though, that I feel personally that bulimia is more distressing than anorexia to the person that has it. And I think it's very hard for a lot of people because bulimia is often not recognised because people don't lose that amount of weight often. Mm. They look all right.
Well, Liz Gull, thank you very much for coming in this morning. Thank you very much, Hilary Jones, as well.
Penny.
And if you're worried about an eating disorder and want to talk to someone, then you can call the organisation that Liz mentioned. That's the Eating Disorder Association on 01603 621 414. That's 01603 621 414. The lines are open from 9 o'clock and the calls are charged at the national rate. Incidentally, Liz and Hilary will be back on the programme later this morning, so ring us if you want advice from them. Right now we're going to take a little break. After that, the weather is sunny.
The Star Wars Special, all next week on GMTV.
Hello. Hi. Later on this morning, Caprice on going from supermodel to pop star, Leslie Grantham's bargain booze, and your chance to win £20,000 on our biggest cash quiz ever.
Dr. Chris Steele's last surgery of the series, and we meet some of the people whose lives he saved. Plus, if you're dreading bearing it all this summer, we've got some really flattering fashion for you. That's later on this morning, 10:30.
GMTV weather with Piriton, a treatment for family allergies.
Good morning. Well, we'll be seeing plenty of these today. Lots of blue skies, just the odd scattered cloud floating around. And for many of us, it's going to be hot and sticky. You can see here that we've got clear skies right the way out from the western parts of the UK, down the south through western parts of Spain. And just this sort of arc of cloud that's spreading up and down, just brushing the coasts of Scotland. Now, that's all courtesy of an area of high pressure, bringing the clear skies. But those fronts just bothering the western coast of Scotland from time to time, I think. This is how it looks this morning then. Some mist and fog patches clearing away. One or two quite dense fog patches around through central and southern parts of the country just at the moment, and some thicker cloud just moving through Scotland, perhaps just producing the odd spot of rain here and there. As we get through and towards this afternoon, so many places are going to be staying dry. There'll be lots and lots of sunshine around. Just as I say, that thicker cloud brushing through Scotland, but elsewhere it really does look as if it's going to be a fine and warm summer's afternoon. There'll be some sea breezes setting in around the coast, and that'll make it feel cooler on the beaches. Top temperatures probably at around about 21 degrees Celsius, that's 70 degrees Fahrenheit around the southern coast, and you can see there through the western coast of Scotland at around about 16, that's 61. Inland though, we'll really be feeling the heat during today. A hot summer's afternoon, tops at around 28 degrees Celsius, 82 degrees Fahrenheit down in the south. Further north though, it looks as if it'll be slightly cooler, 24 is 75, but you'll certainly need to protect yourself from the sun. Here's a summary. If you would like more detailed information about the weather in your area for today and the week ahead, call GMTV Weather Call on 09068 55 9955.
Good morning, it's 6:30 on Thursday the 8th of July. I'm Penny Smith.
And I'm John Stapleton. You're watching the News Hour on GMTV. In the next half hour, could this be a picture of the missing youngster Ben Needham? After 8 years, the search for Ben has switched to Ireland, following a tip-off that he's been taken there. We speak to Ben's mother, Kerry, about the latest developments.
And on the day the Bank of England announces if interest rates are to go up or down, we offer the GMTV guide to picking a path through the mortgage maze.
The news you're waking up to this morning is of a dramatic rescue operation off the coast of Sweden to evacuate 1,300 passengers and crew on board a blazing ferry. The Prinsesse Ragnhild was on her way from the German port of Kiel to Oslo in Norway when fire broke out in the engine room. Ships in the area took part in the rescue, helping to take people off the stricken ship. All the passengers have now been lifted to safety and the fire crews on board are battling to control the fire. For the latest, I'm joined live by telephone, on the telephone by Nina Roa from Coller Line Ferries. Nina, thank you very much indeed for being with us. Is that the latest situation? All the passengers safely off this boat?
Yes, all of the passengers have now been transported to a military base outside Göteborg.
It does seem a remarkable rescue to get 1,300 people off a boat so quickly. How is it done?
We have our procedures to do when things like that happen. So that's under control, and we have our procedures.
I'm sure you do, but I gather that you were assisted, by, I think, by 13 helicopters and various ships, both large and small, all in the area.
Yes, there are some other ships in the area, and they also helped with the evacuation.
Any injuries to report?
No, not at this moment.
But presumably a considerable amount of alarm for the passengers, not a pleasant thing to happen as you're ferrying across the sea.
No, but nobody's seriously hurt, so that's important, and everybody's going then to Göteborg.
OK, so what's the position of the rescue boat now, or rescue boats?
It's outside Göteborg, and it's 9 nautical miles west of Vingafyr. Outside Göteborg, it's still there.
OK, well, well done, and thank you very much indeed for joining us.
OK.
And we'll bring you updates on that breaking news throughout the morning, but now let's get today's other top stories from Anne.
Thanks, Penny. Good morning. A major investigation is underway this morning at a northern bakery after sewing needles were discovered in several loaves of bread shipped to Asda stores. Detectives believe the needles could have been put there deliberately before they left the factory. Duncan Wood reports.
This is the bakery that will be put under the microscope as investigators try to find out exactly how and why the contamination took place. Allied Bakery supplies 56 Asda stores across the north. So far, 4 needles have been discovered, 1 here at Ashton-under-Lyne, others in Leeds and on Merseyside. The majority of cases were reported yesterday. That's when 19 brands of Asda's own wrapped bread and farm stores bread were taken off the shelves and customers offered a full refund. It's also when the bakery stepped up security.
We're assisting the police in the investigation, and also we're putting a lot of effort and measures in place to assure the integrity, quality and the food safety of our products coming out of Stockport.
Shoppers arriving at Asda's 24-hour stores have been met by warning signs advising them to return the specific brands as soon as possible. Asda says the needles were put in after baking and the main suspicion is on the factory. Greater Manchester Police will continue their investigation here at the bakery later this morning. Until the matter is resolved, Asda says it won't take any more bread from here. Duncan Wood, GMTV News, Stockport.
A landmark case in America has ruled that cigarette makers produced a product that causes emphysema, lung cancer and other illnesses. The result is the biggest courtroom loss the tobacco industry has suffered and could expose them to billions of pounds in damages. Ed Williams reports.
It was the most emphatic ruling on the dangers of cigarettes to date.
Does smoking cigarettes cause one or more of the following diseases or medical conditions? Aortic aneurysm, yes. Bladder cancer, yes. Cerebral vascular disease, including stroke, yes.
Almost 2 minutes on, the list still continued.
Pharyngeal cancer, yes. Stomach cancer, yes.
In the dock, America's 5 biggest cigarette makers and 2 industry groups. After hearing the verdict, those who launched the lawsuit hugged and wept in celebration. But for cigarette makers, the decision could prove to be the industry's most dire loss yet. Damages could top $500 billion.
This clearly is tough for the industry at this point, but would I expect enduring damage to the companies as a result of this decision? Not really.
Damage limitation is now key to the cigarette industry. They're likely to lodge an appeal in the next couple of days. Ed Williams, GMTV News.
Vaccines against Alzheimer's and other brain diseases, including the human form of mad cow disease, could be on sale within 6 years, following a major breakthrough announced today. Scientists have succeeded in immunising mice by injecting proteins which prevent Alzheimer's and CJD developing. The government could come under a fierce attack from the unions when it unveils its plans for the future of the post office today. One of the options under consideration is converting the last great nationalised industry into a public limited company. Unions say the move could be the first step towards privatisation. Bill Clinton has become the first president in 63 years to visit a Native American reservation. His visit to Pine Ridge, where the Wounded Knee massacre took place, was part of a drive to improve conditions in deprived areas. The Lakota Indians have more than 70% unemployment and the lowest life expectancy in America. On now to golf, and 19-year-old Spanish sensation Sergio Garcia is leading the Loch Lomond tournament after a first round 9 under par 62. Just 3 days after winning his first title, Garcia leads the competition 2 clear of Sweden's Jesper Parnevik. England's Roger Winchester is a further shot back.
At the 9th, this was to go out in 30, 6 under par. That was a birdie.
Yes, worth waiting for that. 6:37, very nearly is the time. That's it from me this morning. Here's Penny.
It certainly was. Now, a police investigation is continuing today into how sewing needles came to be in several loaves of bread sold at Asda stores across the north of England. It highlights how vulnerable customers are when someone deliberately tries to contaminate food. Well, Pat Daly is from the bakers at the centre of the alert, and John O'Connor is a former policeman and retail security expert. Good morning to you both. Pat, have you found out yet just how these needles got into the bread?
No, not yet. Can I say firstly, Penny, that our major concern obviously is on customer safety, and we obviously take this very seriously. We've launched a thorough investigation in conjunction with the police, with Asda and with the EHO, and again it's only on the basis of completing that investigation that we'll know what the problem really is.
Do you know even whether it was before, during or after baking that these needles were put in?
No, we don't know that at this point at all. Our prime concern has been to work with Asda to make sure that the loaves that we produce for Asda that have been distributed to those 53 stores in the northwest, that we've taken action to take the loaves at risk back off shelf. And so we'll continue with our investigation. We've taken steps internally in the bakery to step up our security in the shape of additional security people, closed circuit television, and I think most importantly of all, the attention of our own employees at our Stockport bakery.
John O'Connor, from your experience in cases like these, who is this most likely to be who's doing this?
It's difficult to say, Penny, because as Pat said, that they'll do an investigation to see when and how these contaminations occurred. They could have occurred in the store, for example. They don't have to have occurred in the factory, because it seems to me that an investigation will show whether the wrapping had been interfered with. And it seems as well that with the sort of paper or greaseproof wrapping you get on bread, it's quite easy to open that up and contaminate. But you're looking really that whether or not there's been an extortion attempt made, whether any attempts been made by the extortionist to obtain money from either the bakery or from Asda. And until that's clear, then it could be anything.
Could be a disgruntled employee, for example.
Could well be a disgruntled employee. It could also be accidental. We don't know until it's been properly investigated. But as I said earlier, these cases, they go on every day of the week. There's somebody trying to contaminate a product somewhere or threaten to contaminate a product somewhere. The police are constantly doing these inquiries. It seems to me there's an urban myth that companies pay out money to extortionists. They never, ever do. But there's this belief in the public that this is what happens. And the other thing that comes out of this, of course, is that you end up with copycat stuff. You get other members of the public thinking, oh, that's great, I'll put some needles in my bread and say that I found this, and they'll pay me, you know, some form of compensation. So that's another worry with this.
How do you go about finding the culprits?
Well, you wait until, first of all, if somebody actually makes the extortion attempts. If someone, you know, what they normally want you to do is to put an advert in either the personal column of the Times or the Telegraph, something like Romeo wants to play, you know, and then you send the thing back, Juliet or whatever. And they then know that you want to play. They then step in with the demand. And the big problem they've always got is getting the money. Now, they've tried to do it in the past through cash dispenser machines and getting companies to send out PIN numbers and cards. Now, sometimes they get away with it. Invariably, they get caught.
Could stores be better prepared, better protected?
Not really. I mean, if you look at the classic case of recent years was Heinz baby foods. And it cost Heinz an awful lot of money to change all their packaging procedures.
That was with the glass, wasn't it?
That was with, well, it was
Ground
with, no, it was with caustic soda in baby food, basically. But the product then was fairly easily contaminated by buying it from the shelf, taking the top off, putting the contaminant in, then placing it back on the shelf at a later date. They've now introduced